name is Constance M. Auchterberg. However, most people know me as Connie, and that's what I use, Connie Auchterberg. Well, of course, it's been varied over the years. In the early years, for 4 years, I went with the State Highway Commission right at the time that the bill, Eisenhower signed the bill for the interstate highway. And I traveled all over the state on condemnation cases at that time. Then I finally decided, though, that I wanted to go into private practice. So in 1959, I came to Salina, and I've been practicing many different types of law over the years, but now I concentrate on wills and trusts and estate planning. I guess I didn't decide really until pretty late in my college career that I decided that I wanted to be a professional. And my dad had worked in contract law as a head of the right-of-way department for Northern Natural Gas Company. And so I don't remember just deciding, but those were the factors, I think, that pushed me toward it. And it was relatively easy to get into law school at that time compared with now. And I decided I wanted to go back to KU and get a law degree. I had worked at the Highway Commission as a secretary for a little while, and one of the women in Topeka, Nellie Ruth Huffman, I think was her name, and there were several others. We used to have our luncheons at the chocolate shop on Kansas Avenue in Topeka. All 5 of us. And that was it. But I guess that was kind of at the same time as I was formulating my desire to go to law school. I met them and enjoyed them, so that could have been a partial factor too. But even my mother, I had noticed when she was visiting with people, told them I was going to law school, would say, of course, she's not going to practice. She'll be in some firm or as a business, as an insurance company or a bank or someplace where she won't be out struggling in the child lawyer field. A couple of my friends, other women attorneys in law school at that time, heard her also, and they questioned me about it, and I said, well, I just don't interfere with what she says, but I'm going to be a trial lawyer. Regardless, I'm going into practice, which I did, more or less. When I went back to KU, to Lawrence, and started school, it was September, and it was a beautiful September, and I just really felt like it was the most beautiful place I'd ever been. I just loved it, and I was so glad that I was there. And there weren't any bad features. Everybody was very courteous to me. You know, the boys at KU Law School always sat on the steps of the law school and whistled at the girls that went by, but they did not whistle at me. They let me come through without any disturbance, whatever. I don't know how they felt about it, but they were at least very courteous. I was fascinated with the cases that we read. I was so dumb when I went to law school that I actually asked somebody, one of the older law students, whether these things that we were reading were real cases. I didn't know that that's what they did. They wrote cases in the law books, and then they used those in the law school to teach us. But I think I astounded the person that I asked about that, but he told me that, yes, they were real cases and the kind of thing I would be doing when I was out on my own. Well, finding a job, it was very difficult then to find a job. And the old adage about the lawyers asking the young women lawyers whether or not they could type was actually true in my case, because I went to several firms and they were interested in my degree and what I'd done, but they had to ask me also whether I could type and take dictation. And I turned them down then and there. But that was one of the things that I ran up against. And then I can't really remember. I finally decided that I know a friend of mine who was a lawyer and who'd been in law school with me was the governor's right-hand man and worked in the State House. And I asked him if he knew of anything that I could get. And he made it possible for me to get a job at the State Highway Commission. So that's what I did when I first got out. And as I said, that turned out to be quite a deal because of Eisenhower signing the legislation that started the interstate highway. And whereas at first the department head where I was working told me that I could not go out and try condemnation cases, that only the boys would do that. But then they got so busy they had to send me out. And I worked on cases across the state of Kansas for about 5 years. And after that I went to Salina. I actually did get into trial work there because we tried these condemnation cases across the state. And they were something that I really hadn't anticipated, but I was delighted to be able to do. And thinking that at first I wrote a Supreme Court brief for the department, and they didn't put my name on the brief. They sent it over with the chiefs and so forth, and I just thought that's the way things had to be, so I didn't complain. But of all things, several of the Supreme Court justices found out that I not only wrote the brief, but I was the one that had made all the suggestions relative to its publishing, and they really came down on the head of the legal department of the State Highway Commission. He was a friend of mine, and we were friends, but still he was had that same frame of mind that everyone did as far as women in the law. And later on, he kind of apologized to me for what he'd done, but I hadn't minded really. I was just happy to be there, happy to be making a salary. But that was another thing, that whereas the men that had been hired on or before the same time that I was hired were getting twice as much salary as I got for the same work. I came to a point in my life that I just felt like this is what I needed to do.
What made you decide to settle in Salina?
Well, my hometown's Lincoln, Kansas, which is just about 45 minutes northwest of here. And I thought Lincoln might be just a little too small, so I came to Salina. And during the first several years, the Highway Commission hired me as local counsel on some of the work out here, which was very helpful because I probably would have starved otherwise. Of course, at that time, I wasn't, very well known and locally, so I think I even took a number of criminal cases because they were available, and later on I just quit doing that. And today I don't know a thing about the present existing criminal law, but I joined things like American Association of University Women and the YWCA, and several community organizations like that. And it came about that some of the women that were from western Kansas, maiden ladies, had been sent here to teach, and their parents had considerable wealth in farmland. And they got to know me, and I eventually represented quite a few of them in getting their estates settled, and went on from there. Well, I was across the street from where I am now, upstairs. They've since torn that building down, but I moved in above the Abstract Company, and waited for steps to come up the stairs. And the most challenging was to get enough business so that you supported yourself. Somehow I did, but I don't really know how a lot of the time. My years with work with the Bar Association would probably be the thing that I could say I'm most proud of. And of course the Women Attorneys Organization wasn't in existence at that time, but it provides a wonderful opportunity for many women. And I haven't been as active in that because I'm getting fairly old. I think probably that would be number one.